What's up guys, welcome to Wasted Space, and today I thought we'd take a look at a game called Into the Stars. Now the developers kindly threw me a key because this weekend the game is going from early access into its full launch state. And if you guys have seen this on Steam, the game's got some pretty mixed reviews at the moment. So I figured it would be kind of interesting to dive into this and see whether or not A, it represents value for money now that it's coming out as a launched live game, and also whether or not that early access process meant that now some of those reviews are perhaps not quite so fair. So let's dive in. This is made by Fugitive Games, and to give you an idea of price, we're talking £15 in the UK, so that means almost certainly about €18 or about $20. So let's dive in and have a look at what we've got menu-wise. Now the first thing I'll point out is this little delay here. It's kind of loading this, well, what is, for all intents and purposes, all the story you get about this game other than what comes in the intro. So basically, loose idea is you are one of a bunch of colony vessels trying to escape Earth to get to a distant planet, and that's going to be safe once you get there, but it's a very dangerous mission in order to get to that place, and you are the last of the surviving colony vessels. All the other ones have been destroyed. So not many things we can do here. Let's just have a quick look at the options before we go further. Graphics wise, not really many options here, but I guess you could argue that it's all you need. You've got VSync full screen, resolution control, there's not anything massively important missing for a game of this style. In the audio menu, the obvious, just volume controls, and then finally we have the controls menu, and this is a bit disappointing. This is literally just telling you what the controls are. You can't rebind any of these, and for me at least, some of them are a bit odd. Like you'll notice here, roll is on A and D, and steer is on Q and E, which for me is the complete other way round to what I'm used to. So I don't know, it would be quite nice to have seen some rebindable controls. But let's dive in. We have the option here to launch a save mission. So this is a roguelike style game. So it will save your progress as you're going. When you quit, it saves, and then you can launch that save back up again. But as soon as you die, you're back to the start again, which is why we've got a launch with last loadout button. But we're going to dive in for the new mission, and yep, let's delete my previous progress. So initially, as you might expect, we're presented with the difficulty choice, essentially. I mean, it's called Explorer and Pursuit, but for all intents and purposes, that's easy and hard. And what it's going to change is how quickly you are pursued, because this game very much resembles Faster Than Light in how its storyline works. You are at one end of a solar system in this case, you've got to get to the other end, and you are being pursued the whole time with a ramping level of threat coming after you. And depending on which one of these options you pick, then you either get very little ramp up, or on pursuit mode, very, very quick ramp up, and you must be moving all the time. So let's kick in with a normal, just to get a sort of balanced idea of what the game's like to play.
Confirm your details.
And now we get the chance to actually pick our ship loadout. So to begin with, we're just going to go with one of the quick start loadouts, and I'd really advise you do the same, because as soon as you go and look at the customized things, it starts getting quite confusing if you haven't played it yet. The game's not very good at explaining in advance what each bit really means. So let's just pick a balanced loadout for ourselves, and we can firstly name our captain. Captain Female Me. Interesting, and you can't change your picture in here, so I'm going to be Captain Female Me, but what we can do is pick our 6 crew members, and these are going to be really important because, as you might expect, they drive the whole gameplay. However, I think this is an area in which perhaps they've missed the boat a little bit. So what I'm going to do, just as an example, is I'm going to just sort these columns one at a time. You'll notice we have 6 crew and we have 6 columns, and I'm just going to pick the best person at each job. So that's the best miner, best commander, best engineer, best pilot, best medic, and this is toughness, so I guess the toughest person. Kind of almost a secondary stat, this one, but we might as well roll with this theme. So we've got the most tough person as well, and we have a crew there, which kind of works. So what we'll do is just ship out and have a look at how this game actually plays.
Entering hyperspace. All hands take position.
So as I mentioned, this plays out very much like Faster Than Light, and unfortunately one thing you can't do in this game is turn off some of the start game hints. So it's going to come up with a whole bunch of text and so on when we first kick off here and talk to us a fair bit. This is again just trying to fill out the story a bit, flesh out the story a bit, because honestly it's not very apparent. But the idea is it's time to run basically, and we are here. We got to get there, and this is all sort of the tiles are the available area we can move in, but you'll notice that we are pretty tiny as far as the tiles are concerned, so it is a pretty decent sized map. Another important point it makes is you won't have enough resources to make it there initially, so be sure to explore the system for valuable resources and upgrades. This is basically the gist of the game.
All systems appear normal, Captain. I've attempted to hail the other ARC vessels but have yet to receive a response. Picking up numerous signals now, this system appears to be quite active. You should note that the Scorn likely tracked our movements here and will attempt to follow. We should keep moving and try to reach Titus Nova as quickly as possible.
So this is our pretty sexy looking ship. And one thing you'll note is we can see on the back here actually our colonists, essentially. We do literally have a colony aboard this vessel that you're responsible for managing to some extent. So, pretty cool looking ship. I do quite like the graphics in this, especially when you think that this is a very similar game to something like Faster Than Light. So it's nice to see this 3D effect. Definitely one of the things I like. And if we hit C now, I can jump into our actual cockpit view. And this is basically where we play from. So, again, one nice thing is you are legitimately flying the ship around, which I would argue in games of this sort of sort is generally unusual. So it's kind of nice to have this sort of big 3D environment. You can choose to look from the outside perspective as well, really have a look around. And all we're going to do to begin with is head off to this planet, try and get ourselves some resources. So we've got these sort of different areas of our control panel here, controlled using 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 as you'd imagine, so key binding is relatively straightforward. And what we can do with this, if we just press space to pause the game so that we're not sort of travelling anywhere, nothing's happening, another area in which it starts to resemble Faster Than Light again, and we can have a look at, say, the map. So this is a better idea of what that map actually looks like, and you get a sort of fog of war effect where you can see a bit around you and what's going on. And what we're going to do is set ourselves a waypoint sort of heading upwards, but we're not going to go the whole way. Let's just go there maybe. Looks about right. And have a look at some of the other panes. So we've got a resource pane. This is literally what we've got on board, and also a summary of what we're using. So you can see daily per population we use a certain amount of life support, we use a certain amount of biomass, which is the BM, and we also have other uses for our resources, and this is going to be pretty much the driving force behind the game. Then we have engineering, which is where we can have a look at sort of our systems and what state they're all in, and you begin with 2 of these, which are basically a way of repairing modules on your ships once they get damaged. And then finally, and this is the screen you're using most of the time, you have your sort of crew management screen where you can send people to sickbay to get healed, or down here you'll notice we've got civilian city reports. So this is constantly going on, and we'll probably get one of them pretty soon. So let's just resume the game and start flying and go back to the captain's chair. And you'll see what I mean by these constant, we get these little events that pop up that we've got to deal with as we're flying around. So let's head over to this icy looking planet by the looks of things. Hopefully that'll have some resources for us. This is our waypoint we placed down just earlier, and we are travelling at our maximum speed. But you can see the fuel is burning down reasonably noticeable speed, so that's one of the big driving forces that we're going to have to worry about is our food. And also you'll notice we've got oxygen and food remaining. It's our fuel, sorry, and we've got oxygen and food remaining on the screen, which is also really important. Aha, so an event. We get little alerts pop up, and here we go. We've got an opportunity to train one of our crew for mining. So all we can do here is just find, where's our person that was really, really good at mining? 55 looks to be about, we've got 2 with 55, very nice. Let's drag one of these and click down there, and that will take just some time and take that crew member out of action while they do so. Now we're in range of this planet. You see we've got this F to interact pop up.
Approaching planet.
And we can go into an orbit around the planet.
Deployment.
And then the game kind of changes. And we've gone from this Faster Than Light spaceship simulator to something completely different. So we've got these different options here, and they have a resource cost. And what it doesn't tell you, but is kind of important, is they also have a success chance. And that's based partly on the weather, partly on the planet, and partly on the skill of the crew you've got. So we have a shuttle team where we can send a shuttle down to the planet. So let's start off with that. In fact, we do one of each just so we can see what they all are.
Shuttle team.
And we get to pick who goes down on the shuttle. And the important part with who goes down on the shuttle is pretty much, you notice you've got a pilot, a commander, and a medic. This is important. So let's grab our best command person and put them in the commander one. Let's grab our best pilot. Who's our best pilot? 51. That looks pretty good. Put it in there. And our best medic, 55, is probably pretty high. Whack that in there. And that is going to affect our success chance. And the game doesn't tell you any of this, but you will slowly start to piece it together as you go through.
Conditions.
So you can see we've actually got a chance of success here, and that's going to be affected by our captain's passive buff. So we have a passive buff as this captain in this loadout, which gives us a 5% extra chance on these. It's one of the best ones. And we also have a cost. So every time we do this, it's going to cost us magnesium. And pretty much everything you do is costing you resources constantly. So the game becomes this big fight of trying to get enough resources and stay in one piece for long enough to stand a chance of getting to where you're going. So we don't get to see any information about that. All we get is just a pop-up here that either says the shuttle flight was successful or the shuttle flight was unsuccessful, sorry. And this is one of the areas where you start hopefully seeing what I'm going to say towards the end about how I think this game's really missed a few chances to be really quite cool just by oversimplifying some of the mechanics and some of the sections.
Location.
So here again we've got a location selection, but it doesn't tell us anything about it. We can just click on one. There was no information there to be gained. I tried to click on it to find out about it, and there's nothing. You just pick one. And we have a little story here. So we've been signaled by a disabled Thurok shuttle that was delivering trade goods to a nearby city. They've requested our help. Orders? And you'll notice at the top we have a little chance of success. This is really important, and really quite small. But anyway, the other thing it doesn't really tell you is that these are kind of in order. So you have the most risky at the top, middle, and then the least risky at the bottom. Or you can choose to just back out on the abort mission. So with 30% chance, we should probably back out, but for the interest of showing you guys what actually happens, let's go for the middle one. So as I said, this would be the least dangerous. But let's go for this offer to help for 50% of the take. Yeah, that sounds about right. We'll take you, yeah, we need our cut for this. And then you just get this bar, again, it kind of misses out and stuff, and wow, with our 30%, we still were successful. And then we go, unfortunately, most of their payment was in the form of Thurok food rations that are useless to us. So, that didn't work out so great. What did we get? And then, you notice we get this mining probe. Like, that was part of the reward for that mission, was to get a module. And this is another area of the game where it's not really well described, but this is really important. So we can see running cost for this probe that converts magnesium into fuel is 50 mg. Ours is 75. There's no other sort of differences between them, so we might as well take it as kind of an upgrade for what we've got. What we can't do is put that old one in our cargo or anything like that. That was a permanent switch, and at times you can ruin your game by doing so. It's almost better to start off with an intended layout and stick with it than it is to upgrade. But anyway, let's try this next one, mining rig. This is probably the most fun, to be honest. This is where we're going to go down and we're going to try and mine the surface of the planet for resources. So again, same idea, we're just going to take the best pilot and we're going to take the best miner we have available. So that 51, 55. We've got, that would actually be our best miner, but he's busy still training that mining. So we'll take our 55. Same deal, we click ready.
Good condition.
Same deal again, we get offered this percentage chance of success without really any breakdown of how it's been achieved or established, and we've got a cost. So off we go.
Mining rig.
Let's send our mining rig down, and this will begin in exactly the same way again. We get a little animation, and then we get that whole, was the pilot successful or not? So let's find out, were we successful? Yep, we were just successful. It'd be lovely to see some sort of breakdown for this. The other thing that popped up on the left there for a second is our pilot just gained a bit of piloting skill by being successful. So we're slowly training our crew as we go through. But anyway, let's continue. And now we get a little fun little mini game. So we're driving the drill, and our job is to drive through resources, miss the red blocks, which as a colourblind person I really hate, and not hit the honeycomb blocks like I just did there, because I was busy trying to talk at the same time, which will destroy the drill.
Rig fuel expended.
So let's just grab our resource, and we can pick how much to take, and we have a limit to what we can take back, and we have a limit on our ship's capacity. But in this case, we got so little I can just grab it all. Right, that's an interesting one as well. So if you hang around too long, much like Faster Than Light, you hang around too long in an area, it raises the attraction of the Scorn, the enemy basically, and they come after you. So you can see this, if you look at the map at the bottom in the middle, the area we're in is now lit up orange. That means it's sort of, there's a high level of threat there. They're really aware we're there. So it's time for us to get the hell out. We've also got another little crew alert here. They flash red. So what have we got happening now? Oh, we got option for pilot training. So where's our pilot? Let's grab these in. Early game, it seems pretty good to get people training because, trust me, it ramps up in what the hell's going on pretty quick as you go further in. And I guess, just looking at the mini-map, we're probably best off aiming for this planet. And that tends to be the best way of approaching things. You're jumping between sites of interest to make sure that at no point you run out of fuel, oxygen, or food. Because as you can see, these are draining, and it's not going to be too much flying around before that fuel number's empty, and we really need to worry about it. So, kind of loosely heading for this planet, but I've noticed we've got something here with the blue highlight. That means that this is a ship, an interactable object of some sort. And if I remember rightly, blue means that it's an event. It's not a threatening ship. It's like a wreck of some sort. So let's go and check that out. So in the map, so if we jump into the map, there are bits and bobs to explore around here that just aren't marked anywhere. I've come across different things out here, gas clouds, wrecks of previous arcs, that sort of thing. And it's pretty cool because you've got this big old map to explore, but what I can say about that big old map is it's the same every time. Another kind of missed opportunity, another area in which this game oversimplified something, I think, there's no procedural elements to it. It's the same map every time. What's procedural is your loadout of your ship. And as we'll move on to later, that's kind of a little bit too simplistic to really give it that longevity. Let's go and find out what on earth we've got here.
It's the Arc 8.
It is an old Arc. Interesting. So this is the Arc 8, and again we can just approach it and press F to approach the vessel. And like before, we'll get an option of things we can do here. So Captain's log, this will be my final report. Our hull is critical, the engine's offline, and we lack the parts to repair them. If you're reading this, scavenge all the supplies you can. Cooper. Okay, that sounds kind of alright. So let's use some of our available magnesium to go and have a bit of a look at what's going on. So again, we got a pilot, a commander, and a medic. This all follows the same theme each time. So our pilot's fortunately free from their training, so let's drop our pilot in, find our best commander, 57, yep, drop our best commander in, and then finally our best medic is Mr. Roger Walker here. So, and again, there's sort of this, managed to mash the mic. There's this hidden sort of chance of success, but in this case, because it's a wreck, the chance is really, really high. So 100% in this case.
Shuttle away.
Get a little animation for our shuttle flying out, although unfortunately these don't have the thing you're flying to in the background. Bit of a shame, but successful flight with 100% as we'd expect, and we've got this same sort of mini-game thing. It appears that the ship's computer is still active, but we can't interface with it because of a faulty comm relay. Maybe we can find a way to repair or bypass the relay. So again, we got these options, and again we've got this tiny little chance of success. So we'll find the bad relay and repair it, see if you can bypass the faulty relay, or dismantle the computer core and bring it aboard. I'm not sure about this. This is very fast and lighty with these sort of multiple choice questions, except in this you've actually got, it's less of a dice roll behind it. There is a little bit of control, a little bit of influence you can have by how good your commander is in this case. So let's go for the top one, the one that in theory should be the most deadly, the most dangerous. See if we can get something to actually happen with our 52% chance. Nope, we were lucky yet again. Able to locate and repair the faulty relay and interface with the computer. We're hopeful that the information will shed some light on what happened to the ship. Cool. And again, we will also get some sort of reward. So in this case, we've got a protein sequencer. This is providing off food, and it runs off CO2 instead. Now, this is a great opportunity to talk about why I'm going to click no to this. You'd immediately think, upgrades, great. The problem is, as soon as we take this, we will have two things on the ship that are draining CO2. So if I just click no and go back and show you what I mean in the resources, nothing else we can do with this wreck. Just going over there was the only option here. So I'll pause the game quickly and just go and have a look at the resources options. So right now you can see that our life support, our protein, our engine, and all of the other things, they're each using different resources. In fact, we've only got one resource that we're not using at all, which is the nitrogen, and we've got almost none of it. Otherwise, we've got a really balanced layout of resources. And more importantly, when we loot stuff from enemy ships, or when we mine down on planets, you tend to come back, even if you're focusing on a certain resource, with a spread of them all. If you end up then with, say, your engine and your life support running off the same material, it's, so far for me at least, been almost impossible to get that to work. You just end up running out so quickly. So, potentially, a bit of a shame, because it means that often the best configuration is the balanced one you started off with. And if you play with it too much, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. But anyway, we've got some toughness training that someone can go on, so let's go and Dump Mary Clark down there. She seems nice and low on toughness. That's why I went for that one. Unpause. Let's see if we can find just a fight, because I'm conscious this video has been going on for a little while now. So let's go and find someone to have a fight with, hopefully. Of course, the best way to actually run into a fight would have been to us to hang around in this sector, and then they come and find us. But if we hang around in a sector too long, they'll do so anyway. So let's go and hang around near this planet if we can get over there. The last bit I haven't talked about.
Alert. Scorn tracking our position.
Scorn tracking our position. Look, and there you can actually see him. He's appeared over here. Let's go and see if we can find him. And while we do so, I'm going to pop open the civilian city management. The last bit we haven't talked about. Oh no, I'm not. We're not going to be given the opportunity. They've come for us. So, this is the combat side of things. There is, of course, combat in this game, and one of the biggest criticisms on the reviews is that the combat in this game is brutal and unforgiving. So, let's go and have a look at that, because I think that's one area in which they've definitely improved. Been kind of critical and negative, but I actually quite like the combat in this. So, let's go fight, and again, we get to pick a crew layout, but this time it's a crew layout for our guns and our ship itself. So, we've still got a benefit by using a certain skill for each slot. So we want our best commander on the deflector shield, we want a good engineer, me no less, on the torpedoes. Let's find another good engineer. Well, unfortunately our only other good engineer is actually on a task at the moment, but that's fine. 45 will do for the lasers, and then finally a medic for the evade feature. Cool, so we're all set up. We get the custom combat UI, if you want to call it as such. So again, we can pause here. So pause, start, stop, etc. And the goal really is like a colour matching game. So if you can see there, he's got a little shield ring around him, and we have the ability to select the colour of our weapons. If we shoot that shield with a blue weapon, when it's blue, it will absorb it. If we use any other colour, it won't. Vice versa, we have the same setup with our shield to match the colours of the weapons it's using. Now, looks to me at the moment that it might go for yellow, so we'll have yellow for the shield. It's got a blue shield itself, so let's go with red for our particular weapons. And then you can see we've got deflect and evade. These are going to become important once we unpause and it starts shooting back at us. The last thing we can do is select a component to shoot at. And in my experience, there is a really sort of straightforward and strict way you want to do this. Blow up their weapons, then kill the hull. All the while the weapons are dead, you can just shoot freely. Not actually that dissimilar to Faster Than Light. In that respect, that was probably one of the better techniques in Faster Than Light 2. But anyway, let's unpause and get the combat on the go. So this is, again, much like Faster Than Light with the pausing, kind of turning it pause on and off in order to buy yourself time to react to stuff. So you saw there, it's charging up a yellow weapon, like I expected. Although, interestingly, I paused and it changed colour. It went blue. And then I screwed up the evade. So we have an evade and a deflect. Deflect only works if our colours are matching. Let me pause it again. And evade works regardless. Evade is really strong, and it was been added in relatively recently in comparison to the other mechanics here. So let me do a bit of combat without hopefully distracting myself too much. I'm going to go straight for his weapons. He's charging up. I'm just going to evade. Oh no, I'm not. I've killed his weapons, so there's no need. Slight sound bug when you do that. The weapons still sound like they're charging up. It freaks me out a lot of the time. And, okay, this is probably not going to be the best example of a combat, because it looks like we're probably going to kill this guy without too much difficulty.
We missed, Captain.
But you can also see that we missed there. Missing and hitting and so on is all based on the skill of your crew. And that's why I think picking that crew at the start in the way we did is really kind of the best way to do things. It's not cheating, but it gives you a really, really strong chance, whereas otherwise you could end up with a very little chance. So as you saw there, we hit with no difficulty, took him out, pretty much done, and then we've got some loot out of it, which is, in this case, some proper loot. So we can click on it to drag it down, and what these are going to do, not sure we can see in here. Nope, we can't, so let's just get out and jump into our cargo so I can show you what those are all about. Go to engineering. I'm just going to hang around here so we get another fight as well. But we've got these now as well. So reduce the operating cost or charge time of weapon for 10 days, like temporary buffs, which is kind of cool, nice mechanic, and we can pick these up off loot from enemies and sometimes off shuttle missions too. The other thing you can see is our protein sequence is a bit damaged, so we could use these to repair that back up again. Could also use some on our hull, but we've only lost 5 points of damage there, so we're probably alright. What you might notice though is our fuel, our oxygen and our food have already started to, relatively noticeably run out. And it wouldn't take too much of us hanging around like this, or maybe visiting planets with the wrong resources on them, for that to really quickly become a problem.
At maximum power.
So let's wander over in the direction of this fella here, see if we can poke him for a final fight. Actually, I've got a better idea. I'll switch over to some pre-recorded footage, some stuff I've already done with some of the bigger combats in them, while I talk a little bit about my opinions of this game and kind of whether I feel it's good value or not. Although firstly, I should talk a little bit about the one area that the game didn't give me a chance to show you guys directly in this playthrough, which was the colonist management, because this actually ties back into that event system as well. So you've got the colony aboard your ship, and it's another mechanic that's perhaps not as in-depth as it could be, but you have the ability to kind of try and grow that colony, and also some requirements to keep them happy, healthy, and in order. And this basically plays out by you can place buildings down, as you can see here, that kind of affect things in different ways, try and boost the amount of population you have aboard, or vice versa, try and keep that population happy or in order. And you'll also get events that pop up that you have to assign crew to try and manage various things that happen inside the colony that's on board your ship. And it's a kind of interesting side mechanic, but the actual building side of things and the managing of the colonist itself does feel very much like that. I know it did come in this order, but it feels like that was tacked on kind of afterwards, and the main point of things was the fact that you would be constantly having these events that you've got to deal with. So that kind of wraps up the base mechanics, although I will admit there is obviously more to it than that. There's more than I can show in a quick first impression video like this. So, when it comes down to whether this game is good value, and sort of, I've got to be really honest, I've actually played this really quite a lot, more than I thought when I went back and looked at my playtime over the last couple of days when I've been trying out prior to doing this impressions. I played it quite a bit, much more than I thought I had, and I do really quite enjoy it. It's got a definite faster than light vibe, which with that sort of roguelike, running away constantly under pursuit, bit of a threat feel to it, so you never ever feel comfortable. It's throwing stuff at you constantly. I love that side of things. What I feel is a real disappointment with this, and I hope they correct it and add more to it by continuing to develop and update the game after launch, is that all of the individual components are just a little bit too simple. The fact that you've only got one ship, the fact that those weapon loadout slots, that there's really not many options, and there is really just one really good way of doing it, and every other way you try and do it is going to be limiting yourself. It's going to be playing on hard mode for all intents and purposes. It means the pure replayability is just running through the universe again, trying to challenge yourself to do it better or on a harder difficulty, which is fine if the universe was procedurally generated, but it's not. So you're going to learn it, you're going to get familiar with it, you're going to know the best places to go, you're going to know the bad places, and in general I think that's going to stop it from having the replayability that it could have done. I don't think it would take much, however, to bring things back round again. A few more different items and options for those slots, so you've got a broader range of things you can do to customise your ship. Same with the crew, maybe a broader range of ways in which you can have them influence things, and some more information, some more ways you can control some of those land missions would really open things up. And of course the big one, and I'm kind of surprised that they haven't really nodded much in this direction, is modding. Like adding in little assets to this game, like I've said, like new weapons or new ships or new enemy types to fight. It's worth noting there are only 3 enemy types really in this game, and they all have a pretty similar attack pattern like you're seeing here, that's how it goes. So again, it's just a case of there's not quite enough content to bulk out what would have been really quite a good long-term experience, I feel. And instead, it's just kind of oversimplified. So, you guys can judge for yourself from seeing this footage whether or not this is something you're going to enjoy. I have to admit, I definitely did enjoy it. Would I have bought it for the price? I don't know. I probably would have looked at it and been put off by the fact that it was that expensive without knowing very much about it, and especially with the mixed reviews on Steam. And what I can say is they have improved and fixed a number of the complaints from those reviews about how combat works and about some of the sort of availability of things to do in the game. The whole civilian city management is a new area that was added in a recent update. So they're definitely listening to the community. Let's just hope they go further with it, and if this sort of thing just interests you as it currently stands, please treat it that way. This is what we know we've got. Don't buy this, or don't think I'm recommending you buy this on the basis that there's gonna be a future update that adds loads more content and solves some of what I'm talking about. There you go, guys. Not normally one to do critical first impressions, but in this case I was pretty disappointed just by the fact that there was this big opportunity I felt for a sort of a way of doing Faster Than Light in a different way that felt different and played differently but had that same core experience, and they've just missed the mark. So I could only be honest, that's my opinion on this. Maybe you guys will feel differently. And if you did like this video, then please hit like, please hit subscribe, it really does help me in the channel out. And if you didn't like it, you know where that dislike button is, but please leave a comment down in the comments below as well. Let me know how I can improve or what it was you didn't like about this video, even if it's just I disagree with your opinion on this game. That's all good. So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.